It has been my great pleasure to work with our next speaker. Stacy Crescencio is a senior at Cane Ridge High School. She is active in the Latino Achievers. She serves on the Mayor's Youth Council and is actually interning in the campaign of a local state Senate candidate here in Nashville. She recently had the opportunity to share her story with Teach for America, and she proudly says her speech was live streamed all over the nation. She hopes to have a career in education policy. She's had some really interesting experiences and wants to leave her mark in education, and you're about to find out a little bit more about that. Through her experiences, Stacy has learned a very important lesson, and one that really, I think, challenges all of us, young and old. She has inspired me, and I think that she'll inspire you as well. With the story of our lives only makes us stronger, please help me welcome to the stage Stacy Crescencio.
Often, we hear people talk about the beauty in our imperfections, how we can always manage to learn how to live happy with them, and how they actually help shape us into unique individuals. Certainly, all this sounds wonderful to me. And say this were true, that we were all accepting of our flaws, that we never doubted in our unique qualities, that we loved us for who we are, and that we absolutely always embraced our human flaws. According to many, we would be then in a state of content. There would be absolutely nothing obstructing the path toward a happy and successful life. Yet why is it that even when we learn to live with our own flaws and find ways in which we can make them work in our favor, that we still begin to feel insecure when compared to others or in competition with someone else, whether it be for a job, an interview session, or yes, the acceptance into the best college that will equip you for the area you wish to make an impact on? Why do we continue feeling like we have no potential chance of reaching our most desired goal, or of answering to a call God has placed before us, despite being certain that our own imperfections play no role whatsoever on the results of such undertakings? My reasoning for this devastating reality is only one. This feeling of self-inferiority comes not from our own flaws. In fact, it has almost nothing to do with them, because everyone has them. But instead, on the flaws we encounter in the world in which we find ourselves in. Flaws we tend to have no control over. Let me now tell you a little bit about my life, and you'll be able to assess some of these worldly imperfections that I am referring to. As a young girl, born in Los Angeles, California, to parents earning very low income and living far below the poverty line, things have never came easy for me. My parents had no money to provide for me expensive tutoring services or to sign me up for camps that would challenge me and enhance my knowledge. They instead were forced to work with what they had. I will never forget my father's kind undertaking when he found a way in which my uncle could pay him a $10,000 debt he owed him. He asked my uncle to begin teaching me English and math with the purpose of having me enter preschool knowing more than any other child there. No, this act was not selfish or harsh, and neither did it deprive me of a happy childhood. In fact, even before the day I was born, my father set me up for success. I can't help but recall when he told me of the time he entered El Zócalo, the most highly regarded Mexican church, and began imploring that God grant him a daughter with the intelligence to make all the right decisions, fight off life's obstacles, and find her way to success and happiness. He did this because he himself lived a life of limited educational instruction and wanted much differently for me. My mother also regards education as a way out of a life full of injustices and poverty. She has taught me how to be fluent in Spanish. I love her for that because it has made me versatile over time in unexplainable ways. Both of my parents have contributed to the way I value education. Their life stories strengthen my desire to succeed. I know nothing would make them happier than seeing me succeed in the career of my dreams. They try, setting examples of the proper ways to act and express one's feelings and thoughts. Something I have never told them, however, is that they serve as the example of what I would never want to become. I see the way they react to problems in their lives. My father barely speaks to me. It might be the fact that I'm barely ever home, or that simply he's too busy thinking about problems. About a year ago, my father harmed me in a way I will never forget. He called me over to the living room because he couldn't figure out how to insert a DVD that he was trying to show family members who came to visit. However, I was unable to get the DVD to show up. I kept trying until he told me to move. I didn't move, thinking that trying once more would make a difference. He got angry. I got up, and before I knew it, he had raised his hand and slapped my cheek so hard, I was speechless. I began to cry and noticed how everyone's eyes fell on me. I found no explanation for what my father had done to me so heartlessly. I will never forget that moment, just like I will never forget my mother's harsh words towards my siblings and I. When she gets angry, she yells out ugly comments. Her words towards my siblings hurt me the most. My brother, he tends to eat more than he should and gains weight faster than other children. My mother inexhaustibly insults him, calling him ugly names. Tears fill up my brother's cheeks, and it angers me. I hope one day they understand how much I despise those actions. Just as much as these experiences instill in me the feeling of sadness, anger, and inferiority, something more than just my experiences at home managed to do so with even greater force. That which I also regard to be part of a worldly imperfection are my experiences with an education. There was a point in my childhood, as I expressed earlier, that truly built up my educational foundation. Early on, and still living in Los Angeles, California, I was enrolled in the GATE program, which stood for the Gifted and Talented Education Program. This program was designed to meet the needs of high ability and intellectually gifted students. So as you can see, my ability to think and learn was early on acknowledged and recognized. This same district hosted competitions in which students like myself could compete, such as mathathons and poetry readings. One year, me and a group of 5 other children were chosen to represent our school at a mathathon competition, and we won not third or second, but first place, simply because teachers had chosen to take a chance on us. 8 years ago, however, I moved to a completely different state, the state in which I now reside in, our very own Tennessee. As you can imagine, with the move, things were not easy to cope with. It wasn't enough to place me in classes that were not challenging, such as my GATE courses, but I was also at a school belonging to a district that did nothing to challenge the young minds of its students. Times were hard, and they got even harder the time when the 2010 Nashville flood devastated my family, just like many other families in Nashville. School for that period of time mattered less and less for me. It was a time, but also the circumstance and the growing achievement gap that cost me an adequate education. And so it is that my educational experiences caused me to feel so inferior that I tormented myself into thinking that I would never amount to anything, that the cycle would continue, that I would never be able to prove to my parents that it's possible to live a better lifestyle, that there is a better way to educate, and that there does exist a better way to solving problems. This takes me to the biggest question in all of this. How is it that we deal with these worldly faults and imperfections? Do we let them steal happiness away from us? Let even more angst generate rapidly within us? Allow them to hinder the way our life envelops, or also make them work in our favor? So much of our time is consumed in devaluing ourselves. We think so much of only if I were rich, only if I attended a private school, only if I didn't study in a place where education mattered nothing to others and consequently interfered with my learning, only if I was a potential candidate for the top schools in America, only if I were white. Many of us think this way, including myself, for a very long time. Until I came to the sudden realization that everyone's story serves the biggest purpose of all. It opens the door to a better life, in which these worldly flaws like educational and economic inequity can be embraced and can be used to our benefit. How, you may ask? How to learn from a life of poverty and poor education? To that, my response would be to stop wanting your life to have played out any different than how it did. An influential person once told me, comparison is the thief of joy. And I agree. I believe that our life story is ours to love, ours to take advantage of, and to use as fuel for what is to come next. The story of our life is the only one that works for us, the only belonging key in existence that opens the doors to great opportunities in our life. The story of our life only makes us stronger. Now, I'll share with you exactly how I reframed my story from that of disillusionment to one of empowerment. Ever since I was small, I have reflected on the happy feelings, but also on the not so happy feelings. I was never blinded by the struggles in my life. I always looked restlessly for the positive side of things. I never focused only on the negative side, although at times it seemed stronger. I focused on uncovering what I could gain from a not so enjoyable experience and found that it was always possible. The more my parents argued, the more they motivated me to live a life better than theirs. Every time they criticize someone, they inspire me to become tolerant. When they speak uncivilly, they teach me how to deal with bad commentary. Through them, I learned the value of education, and my desire to pursue a career in education policy was born. Over time, I learned not to misjudge my parents. I realized that they only acted morally because they weren't blessed with an education, struggle to pay rent, and can't afford to buy their own house. Deep inside, they realized how different their lives and character would be if they had received the education everyone deserves. I love them dearly, and their mistakes will never change that. I know they don't mind when I say that they serve as the example of what I would never want to become, because they always remind me to be a better them, to be more educated than they were, to live a life better than theirs. With this in mind, it was easy to work on defeating the thoughts of my life has hindered me and my life has ruined me. Placing my faith in God and focusing on diminishing factors that brought me the feelings of dissatisfaction, pain, sadness, and anger have proven to be the answer. I study how to eliminate these factors from my life and how to create a more peaceful environment for myself and for others. So yes, I have been faced with worldly imperfections like educational and economic inequity. And yes, my parents' poor discernment has cost me and my siblings emotional damage. But I have also learned from them my values. They value benevolence, loyalty, along with education. The emphasis they placed on education early on has made a difference. A resilient mind causes me to move forward. I may take steps back sometimes and begin forgetting where I want to go or what changes I want to make. But a thought somehow always manages to make its way in my mind and remind me just what it is I want in life. It's certainly not money or power, but to make sure that I no longer store the feeling of inferiority or reproduce it within someone else. I encourage everyone who has ever felt inferior or defeated to think back to a time in which they endured emotional damage and reflect on whether they rather feel the same way again and reproduce it within someone else, or work hard to hold control over those feelings and learn how to prevent them from ever occurring again. These worldly imperfections do a job far from defining us. They are there to make us stronger. We can't afford to look at them as barriers. View them as fuel instead of impediments, the same way I have, the same way our own president has, the same way millions of other successful people have. My message is simple. No matter your life story or the worldly imperfections that you encounter, you can still learn how to live happy, how to make them work in your favor, and how to reach success. The story of our life only makes us stronger. As long as you choose how to write the next chapter. Thank you.